Hi, this is Len Edgerly for the Kindle Chronicles. I am in New York City and I'm recording this on Tuesday, October 15th. I won't release it until tomorrow, Wednesday the 16th at 9 a.m. because that's when the embargo will lift on the event which I attended here today. It was a big day for the Kindle. The last time Amazon talked about products, it didn't even mention the Kindle, but this was kind of a Kindle palooza. It was 4 new Kindles were announced. And the big headline item, I'm going to tell you kind of the highlights here so that I won't keep you in suspense, and then I'll tell you how I've planned to talk to you about the things that I heard during this episode. Big news, a color Kindle. I think I've been talking about color Kindles ever since I started the podcast, and they were always, too expensive and not ready. Well, just when I thought they had announced some pretty cool stuff, they pulled out the color Kindle. It's called the Colorsoft, and it is going to be available. It's available for pre-order for $280. It ships on October 30th. Now, as you know, Amazon likes to be kind of cute with their prices, so everything is like $279.99. In my book, that's $280. So I'm going to quote the prices that you'll hear today, rounded up a penny to the number that is the one that's going to affect your pocketbook if you're going to be looking at things. So we'll be talking a lot about the Kindle Papersoft, the new color Kindle. And then there's an all-new Scribe. And as you know, the Scribe is close to my heart. And there's a new one which is going to be coming out. And that is going to be available. It's going to ship on December 4th, and it's available for pre-order for $400. It has some pretty interesting new capabilities for note-taking, which I think will also be available to existing Scribes by software update, but we'll talk a lot about that. There's a new Paperwhite, and the Paperwhite's, why mess with success? It's the most popular e-reader in the world, and it has been tweaked some. The price has gone up a bit. The prices on all these have gone up a bit, so the Paperwhite now is $150. It will be $160, and the Signature Edition goes from $190 to $200. They're both going to be available for shipping as of the day you hear this, on the 16th. So that one is ready to go, as well as a new basic Kindle, which is a little faster. It's a very sleek little unit, a little more storage, 16 gigabytes versus 8, higher contrast ratios. So they updated, they updated 3 members of the Kindle lineup, and then they added another one, this Colorsoft. So pretty exciting. I'm going to start out playing the interview that I did with Kevin Keith, who is the head of the Kindle product line. A good guy. He's been on the show a couple of times before, and we had a chance to talk after we'd all had a chance to try out the Kindles, and we heard from Panos, Panay, who is the new Senior Vice President for Devices and Services. He's been with Amazon for a year now, but Kevin and I had a chance to sit down and had a fun interview. So the way I'm going to organize this is we're going to jump right into the Kevin Keith interview. And then I'm going to walk through details of the 4 new Kindles. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Panos Panay. This guy came up to me while I was sitting waiting for the thing to start and introduce himself, and I had heard his name, but he was the new guy, and he turned out to be the MC for the day, Dave Limp, that used to do these things. That was a year or two ago. He left Amazon to go to work for Jeff Bezos' space company, Blue Origin. And then I'll finish up with kind of some color commentary, what it was like to be at the shed just a little ways away from the hotel that I'm recording in here. I'll be heading back up to Maine tomorrow. I think my train leaves at 12:30 from Penn Station. So it's been a pretty exciting trip down here to New York City, and I look forward to talking with you about it. So with that, let's get into talking with Kevin Keith. Now, Kevin joined Amazon in 2012. He was wearing a big boot, and so he was hobbling around. We sat in a couple of chairs side by side and recorded the interview. Turns out he got injured playing pickleball, which, as some of you know, was a game that Darlene and I play a lot with, but he was in with kind of a rough college crowd, and I didn't get the particulars of how he banged himself up playing pickleball, but he was in good spirits, and he's someone I really enjoy talking with. So let's just turn to the interview, and you'll hear Kevin talk about the Colorsoft and other things. And somebody's calling me. I'm not sure who that is.
The challenge with color is it impacts the reading experience if you don't do it right.
Right.
And so we have our customers have a very high bar for us, and so we have a very high bar for ourselves to help our customers. And as you know, the three things that they care about in that reading experience is high contrast, high clarity, high resolution text that pops off the page. 2 is really fast page turns, and 3 is really long battery life. Right. And color impacts all of those negatively.
Which of those 3 is the toughest challenge that color brought you?
Oh, that's a good question. Speed and resolution are probably the ones, because you can add more battery, although it makes it a little heavier, but we didn't want to do that. Yeah. But speed and resolution are probably the difficult ones. Yeah. And so the technology we brought in, so we completely redid the display in a couple areas. Number one was the light guide. So 2012, we came out with the first Paperwhite with a front light.
You call it the light guide is the front light?
Yeah, the front light uses light guides to direct the light into the display.
Yeah.
So that came out first with Paperwhite 2012, and we've made changes, but this was a complete redo.
Right.
And we went from white and amber LEDs to nitride LEDs.
What's nitride?
So nitride LEDs, so a normal white and amber is kind of a wide spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's more white, and for color you want more narrow spectrum.
Oh.
And so that's key. 2, we wanted to make sure we had that narrow spectrum and maintain waterproofing.
Oh, right.
So that nitride was the right solution for us for those. Custom built by our display engineers who are amazing.
Wow.
Nog is here, and he is a fantastic engineer, and it took iteration after iteration to get that right.
Yeah.
The second thing is we had custom coatings, and so what that does is it really focuses that light through individual pixels to be able to create that color instead of mixing the color together through different pixels. So that getting that right color was really important. So that's how you get the color. Then the oxide backplane, so first time bringing that to both Paperwhite and to Colorsoft, increases speed and increases contrast ratio with lower battery life drain. So those problems got at least mostly solved from those different areas.
Yeah. I'm such a fan of the color idea. I have to say that when I picked it up, I was disappointed. It seemed kind of pale, and that might have been the sun was shining and all of that. And and I use my iPad a lot. I read on it, and it's so brilliant. So I guess I'm wondering, as a reader, why did I want it so much? And is there a challenge of people who love reading on a Kindle think they're going to love color, and when they see it, it looks kind of pale. But how do you understand the trade-offs? You're still getting that focused. It's a Kindle, it's not an iPad.
Right.
And so you're getting color, it's not the same, but that question about the how bright is it, and how bright does it have to be for you to think it really is what the customers want?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's a lot of LCDs in the world. There's tablets, there's PCs, there's phones. So there's plenty of experiences if people want that, kind of bright color that is backlit kind of in your face. The problem with that is it'll keep you awake. And it isn't great for your eyes. And so what we wanted to do is make sure we had color that was made sense for a Kindle.
Sure.
Right? And so that's that soft but yet vivid color that we were trying to aim for. And so most people that we've tested this with are like, that's what I would expect from a Kindle. A little bit softer, a little bit more like newsprint. That's kind of what we were going for. And so we try to balance that, how do you get that rich color, but also make it soft on the eyes? That is the trick.
Yeah, and I think that if you start with a Kindle, and if you've read on a Kindle for 17 years like I have, color adds something clearly. It's not that you started on an iPad, then you shifted to a color Kindle.
Right.
You went the other way, and I think that's why it makes so much sense. The other thing I thought was brilliant is the highlighting in different colors.
Yes.
Because that was really a bright difference between what are the 4 colors you can highlight in?
It's pink, blue, orange, and green, I believe.
And then
yellow. Sorry.
And I think I heard you say in answer to a question, if I'm highlighting a book for certain purposes in one color, I can go back and search for what I did just in that color.
Yep.
That's pretty handy.
So you also see that same color if you use the Kindle app. So if you go to the same book in the Kindle app, you're going to see that color there, just like you saw it on your Kindle device, and vice versa.
Right.
And then so you can search. The other thing that works on any of our devices and is particularly good for highlights and for Kindle Scribe is if you hit the top, there's a little annotation notebook, and that'll show you all the highlights
in their color.
Yes, and it'll show you all the highlights and all the underlines, and for Kindle Scribe, all your handwriting.
Nice.
And so it's like seeing everything in one place. You click on it, and it'll take you to that page.
Sure. Yeah.
So it shows you the context, and then you can kind of go back. So there's a lot of different ways that people can use their highlights, underlines, or in the case of Kindle Scribe, the notes.
One reaction I had, just sort of emotionally, I've done underlining in books ever since I learned to read, I think. And there's something about having the underline be like a squiggly line, or it's not straight. It sort of makes me feel more in control of it, and it's brilliant that you can take my erratic line and snap it to a real line.
Yeah.
But part of me thinks you messed with my line. I want it to look sort of messy.
I think what we found is a lot of customers like that snap and then there's also a little trick where you can take the highlighter and you kind of highlight a paragraph.
That's nice.
And just diagonally, and it'll highlight the whole thing.
And
so there's little shortcuts.
The whole paragraph.
Yeah. And then the trick is with Kindle Scribe is to determine, so the active canvas that we brought forward there, which is writing directly on the text of a book, is when are you highlighting and when are you writing a note, is a really tricky thing that we had to
detect that.
Right. And so we had to pull that together to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that was the other thing that I think I probably have asked you before. So how come I can't do the kind of annotations on a Kindle book that I can do on a PDF on
Right.
Scribe, and I figured there's all different kinds of reasons. But you guys created something even smarter than the sticky notes with the active canvas and then the
external margins.
Was some of that need for innovating something else because it was so difficult to be able to do in a Kindle book what I can do on a PDF, and it just couldn't be done engineeringly?
Yeah, well, there's two different things. So if you put a PDF onto a Scribe, you can do it's called fixed format. So you can write directly on the page.
Now, can I make it bigger and it'll expand?
No. That is the problem.
I didn't
right. So if you, it will zoom in, but it won't change font size. You'll just zoom into that side of the page. You won't see your whole page. And so if you're me and you bring in a PDF that's 12 font, it's unreadable.
Right.
Until you do that. But if I I bring in a Word document, it can come in, it can reflow, and I can change font size. And then what we showed you with Active Canvas, you can do on a Word document, just like on a book.
Right.
And the words will flow around your note.
Yeah.
And that note is always anchored to the text that you put it on.
Yeah.
So that if you change font size, or what happens a lot is authors will make changes to the book.
Oh.
And so you might not change the font size, but the book will actually change.
And those updates can get loaded into the Kindle system.
Right, and you wouldn't even know it. And but then your note would move. Right, that was the hard part, is how do you have it work? We call it a reflowable book, where the fonts can change, but your note stays connected to that text. That was the really hard part that the team had to solve for.
Well, and it's so clever because your the active note, what's it called? Active what?
Active Canvas.
Active Canvas. AC, Active Canvas. So the Active Canvas, you can make that window get bigger and smaller, and it can also scroll.
Yep. So what you can do is you write your note, and when you're done writing, you hit the little check mark, and then it creates the note, and then you can expand it, you can add more to it, you can erase, and you can expand horizontally and vertically. So either way that you can do it. And then, so what we found is there's some people that like to have their notes visible, and there's some people that don't, and some people that like both. And in the case of expandable margins, you can tuck those notes away, or it gives you even more space to be able to write your notes. So if you want a bigger space, the margins are great. If you want to hide your notes, the margins are great. If you want your note kind of visible as you're turning pages, Active Canvas is the way to go. And so it's the same kind of idea of anchoring to the text, but we wanted to give customers choice.
You sort of invented new ways of, well, you have invented new ways of annotating that take advantage of the digital platform.
Everything we do here is pushing forward in new innovation for customers. And that's what we're excited to show today, is not only we're innovating on Paperwhite, Scribe, Colorsoft, and even the entry Kindle. This is the first time we've done 4 new devices in one time. And a lot of that is because the business and reading is just going, just exponentially higher. So it's been great to see, as Panos talked about, 60% of our customers are new to Kindle. And I think that's going to be true for Colorsoft too. I think there's people that are sitting on the sidelines that want comics. Want color. And what's great is now they can take their comic books outside. You can't take the LCD outside. And so this is kind of the give and take of what kind of color you have.
It was pretty heartening to think young readers are coming to the Kindle in droves, and that whole idea that maybe the invention of the Kindle and everything you've done in 17 years has actually helped to keep the reading flame alive. My grandkids' sons are 11. Today's Jake's birthday, 11 and 9. And they go to bed with a Kindle under the covers, and they're reading the Kindle all the time. And it just, it really touches me.
We say it's not screen time, it's reading time. And so at least my nephews and nieces, they can use their Kindle when they can't use a phone or a tablet or anything, because it's all good. And it's not going to keep them awake. It's stimulating their brains, all the good things that come with a Kindle.
It feels like a haven. We used to play this game, my wife and I and the boys, and we called it SOTB, screens on the bed. So each of us would be on our big bed in Maine there, and we'd have tablets, we'd have iPads, and we'd all play games together, and they just loved having us be there. But my daughter, their mother, said, too much tablets, too much. So he said, Grandpa, we've got a new thing we're going to do. It's KOTB, Kindles on the bed.
That's awesome.
Now we're all sitting there reading our Kindles.
That's very Amazonian, by the way, to create a acronym.
Yes.
You know, like that's what we do. Panos comes in here and he's like, "Please, can we stop with the acronyms?"
Yeah, right.
You know, he's like, I gotta learn this language that you have.
Well,
Yeah.
poor guy. I mean,
Yeah.
you should just handed him a book a year ago
Yeah.
so that he'd be able to see all the acronyms.
Well, what's funny is what's really cool is the kids edition of our devices. So we're able to actually track how often people are reading, you know, on an aggregate basis, not individual.
Yeah.
And kids that have the Kindle Kids, on average, an hour a day of reading. So it's
And what
it's a
ages is that cover?
well, we 3 to I think 10 is what we kind of aim for with that device.
young.
So I don't know the exact ages of the kids that buy them, but that's
really
the
kids.
target segment. And then after that, you know, A, they got a great device, and B, they're able to have Kids Plus, which has thousands of books included with the Kindle, and then you get a cover as well. And so they just are voracious readers, and so parents love it because they're like, I already got a library of books they can just download and buy, and I don't have to purchase anything more.
I was surprised, and Jake was with us recently. He's highlighting. Is that unusual for kids to use the highlighting part of it?
You know, I've never looked at that data. The number of highlights is in the billions.
Oh, yeah.
So it is a big number, but I've never broke it down by age segment, so now you have me curious.
Well, it was really funny to see the kinds of things he was highlighting. Don't show that to your mother.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We're probably there, right?
4 more minutes, if you want.
4 more minutes. Wow.
All right, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What did you think of, did you expect Kindle to have Gen AI?
No, and all right. I want to finish with something that I know you can't talk about future products, but I want to just plant an idea here. So I'm reading this book, Rachel. It's a new book, relatively new.
Yep.
And I'm really bad at remembering names. So this is the AI pen.
Yep.
So I can go in Rachel Kushner's Creation Lake. I've forgotten who the character Bruno is. What can you tell me about him?
Finding Bruno character. Bruno Lacombe is a character in Rachel Kushner's novel, Creation Lake. He lives in an underground cave in southwest France, fascinated by prehistory and the Neanderthals.
Stop. So I don't know how they're doing that because it's in copyright.
Yep.
And they're somehow, and I can say, tell me about Bruno's love affair with so-and-so. Tell me the themes. I can really drill into the book.
Yeah.
And at some point, I would like to not have to use the AI pen for something down the road. But when you think of AI, you did something very smart with the summary and then
refinement,
where you actually can take the notes. But I guess maybe what's your guiding principles as you think of all the things you could do with AI? How do you know which ones are worth doing?
Well, first of all, we have an X-ray feature,
right?
So a lot of what you just did there, you can do with the X-ray feature pretty quickly.
Yep.
But with Gen AI, it's really important to know the source material and to respect copyrights. And so that's a big, kind of tenet we have.
Yeah.
What's great about the Gen AI features in the notebook, they're yours.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what we're doing is just making your notebooks that much more powerful.
That's right.
So if you're just writing stuff down, putting them in a notebook is one thing. Being able to recall those things and being able to summarize those things, to be able to share those things is different. And so we call it like a more powerful, more useful notebook. And so useful AI is what we're kind of going for. But I expect this to continue to evolve and grow for sure. But we always want to do it within, guardrails. And for our AI, we don't train on any data that our customers have. We're encrypting it. Once we summarize it, it's gone. So it's just yours. So we have to be really careful about that, and that was core to how we do things.
Yeah, I can't wait to try that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you again. Yeah, I will. I know. You see, we brought the wall to you this time.
I know.
Instead of you having to go to the wall. So you're going to have to get your picture in front of it.
But now you got to add a few things. So
I know. We got to actually move everything down a little bit in day one too.
I'll build a new building.
Hey, those are good problems to have.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's the first time you're going to see. Actually, we're going to have. It's more than 4 because the kids editions.
Sure.
So it's going to be quite the stack of devices for 2024.
Yeah.
So
well, I hope to be doing this for another 10 to 20 years. So
awesome.
Well, when are you going to retire? You're a young man.
Whenever you do.
Okay. All right.
I'll follow your lead.
Okay.
Awesome. Good to see you, Lynn.
All right. That's a wrap.
That was my conversation yesterday with Kevin Keith, who is Vice President Product and Marketing at Amazon, and he's responsible for the Kindle and some other devices. Kevin has been at Amazon, as I said, since 2012. Before that, he was 10 years at Microsoft, which is also where Panos, Panay came from last year. I woke up at 3 a.m. because I had some other ideas that I wanted to I wanted to listen to this, make sure that everything's right before I put it up for distribution at the time of the embargo coming off, which is coming up in about 5 hours, 9 a.m. And I'm glad I got up because a specifications sheet showed up in my email from Devin, the woman that's helped me to cover this on the PR team for Amazon. And there were some interesting little tidbits. I've got an index card full of numbers, and I haven't had that much sleep, but I'll try to hit the highlights for you. One thing that's interesting and that was not mentioned or emphasized in any way at the presentation is that the new Paperwhite is actually a little heavier than the old Paperwhite. It's 7.4 ounces for the new one and 7.2 ounces for the existing one. You kind of hate to see that. I mean, nobody's really going to... When I held the two together at the event, I had my Paperwhite, and I said, I wonder how this feels. I thought I could feel a slightly heavier feel to it, or at least that they were the same weight. I don't know if I can actually feel with my hand a difference of 0.2 ounces, but there it is. The new Paperwhite's just slightly heavier. It also has, the dimensions are different. The old Paperwhite was 6.9 inches kind of tall, and the new one is 7 inches, so 1/10 of an inch longer. And the old one was 4.9 inches wide. The new one is 5 inches, again, just 1/10 of an inch. But the new one is slightly thinner. It goes from 0.32 inches to 0.3, so that one is 2/100ths of an inch thinner for the new one. I have a cover on my existing Paperwhite that I really like, and I was just curious if it would fit the new one. Well, it doesn't. Those additions of length and width on the new Paperwhite mean that you'll be needing a new cover if you decide you want to upgrade to the new Paperwhite. The other, let's see. So the basic Kindle, everything's exactly the same. The weight is the same as the current basic Kindle, 5.56 ounces. It's 6.2 inches by 4.3 inches by 0.32 inches. That's all the same, old and new. The Scribe has, let's see, so the weight is the same, 15.3 ounces for the old Scribe and the new Scribe. The new Scribe, the whole thing is the same. Everything about the Scribe is the same. Dimensions 7.7 times by 9 inches by 0.22 wide. Now the Colorsoft, which is, it's pretty much the same dimensions as the Paperwhite, the new color model. It's 0.3 of an ounce heavier. The Paperwhite, black and white, the new model is 7.4 ounces, and the Colorsoft is 7.7 ounces. So some of the things that Kevin was talking about that they did to solve the problems of color did add a little weight to the Colorsoft as opposed to the Paperwhite. Now, I do want to follow up. This is one of the things that got me awake at 3. I said, I never really talked about the Gen AI that Kevin talked about. We weren't able to see it on the devices in the display area, so we had to just see how Panos was talking about them. And there's two things. These are on the Scribe notebooks, and you can scribble away, which I love to do. I take notes. I was taking notes at the event on my Scribe. And then you can summarize your note so that it will take the kind of the highlights, and it'll make sort of like a one-page summary of everything that you did. And it's in a script font, so it looks like someone who could write better than I do, and that becomes the top page of your notebook if you've got several pages in your notebook. Now, the other thing that you can do, if you don't want to summarize, all you want to do is see what you wrote in that script font, which is much more legible. You can choose the refine function, and these are the two Gen AI capabilities that Kevin was talking about that are on the Scribe, and they're not. No, I think those will be, when it ships on December 4th, you'll have that Gen AI built in. But the other features about the expanded margins and the active canvas, I think, are coming later. Before I turn you to the voiceover that I recorded yesterday evening before I went to bed, I want to give a little bit more of a demonstration of how the AI pen is helping me to read books on my Kindle. I mean, it doesn't have to be on a Kindle. It could just be any book that I'm reading. But this one that I'm reading, Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, it's a complicated book, really an excellent book. It won the Booker Prize, and I'm enjoying it. But here's another example of the kind of information I can get on the run as I'm reading the book using my AI pen from Humane. To activate the pin, which I wear on my clothing, it's got a magnetic clasp, so I just touch it and then I ask the question. And I'm going to leave the length of time that it takes to respond so you can get a feel for it. It's pretty quick, even though it's going up to the cloud to get this kind of information. I'm reading the book Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and Bruno, there's a section I'm reading now. What is his relationship to the narrator, whose name is Sadie Smith?
Finding relationship info. In Creation Lake, Bruno Lacombe is an octogenarian ideologue who engages in philosophical exchanges with the narrator, Sadie Smith, who is an undercover FBI agent using an alias. Their relationship is marked by deep, intellectual interactions.
Do they fall in love with each other?
Checking character relationships. The book does not explicitly state whether Bruno and Sadie Smith fall in love. Their relationship is more focused on intellectual interactions and the broader plot elements of espionage and eco-activism.
Where is the book set geographically and in time?
Finding setting in time. Creation Lake is set in the rural regions of southern France, specifically in a complex of ancient caves and limestone areas. The time period is the present day.
Why did it win the Booker Prize?
Explaining Booker Prize win. Creation Lake won the Booker Prize for its unique blend of profound wisdom, humor, and commentary on humanity's environmental trajectory. The novel combines these elements within a spy thriller framework, making it both engaging and urgent.
So, Kevin, he had an appropriate response when I gave the quick demo, which he wasn't expecting. Just kind of popped it on him and said, well, there's X-ray. And X-ray is cool. I use X-ray. I can highlight the name of a character in a book, and then I can find information. But it's nowhere near this kind of a conversational situation with the AI able to just answer questions on the run. And as you can tell from that little conversation, I didn't have to say each time in the book Creation Lake, the AI pen remembers what we're talking about, and it just answers any questions that come up in amazingly nuanced ways. I don't know what the copyright issues are involved in it, and but it's obviously something that would be really cool to have on a Kindle. And I liked how Kevin talked about the guardrails that Amazon is using for AI, and the things on the Scribe are very appropriate. There's no AI existential risk going on there. You start getting into your Kindle being able to talk to you about the book you're reading in the way I can do with my AI pen. It's just a whole host of other issues that'll have to be solved. But it was kind of fun, and when I showed the remarkable tablet to Dave Limp, who was the guy that kind of had Panos' job before, it was really fun to see. 2 or 3 years later, there was the announcement of the Scribe, and I'd actually sent Dave an email saying, hey, you should do this thing and you should call it the Scribe. So that was fun. But I don't know that I'm going to have lightning strike twice and be able to plant a seed that actually affects the trajectory of the Kindle. But why not? And Kevin's a smart guy, and so it was fun to just give him the demonstration. He said afterward, he said, you're the first person I've ever seen use the AI pen. So that was fun as well. So now I'll return you back to the flow as I recorded it yesterday, where we kind of work through the products and then finish up with some thoughts at the end. Well, let's talk about the Colorsoft. The pacing of the presentation was smart, and it had quite an impact on me because I had pretty well decided that there wasn't going to be a color Kindle announced at this thing, and I thought that some of the new devices, the Kindle Scribe, which I'll talk about next, I just thought, well, there's enough here to have an event, and I can see why they did it. So when Panay announced the Kindle, actually I think it was a slide up on the big screens that were on either side of the little raised stage, and there was a Kindle with a color cover on it. And then he began to tell the story about how this was an entirely new Kindle that was being introduced, and it was called the Colorsoft. I was kind of pondering, well, why? Literally, I started having some tears in my eyes. There was just kind of an emotional moment for me. And I think it was because there have been so many years when the idea of a color device has been talked about, and I've pretty much believed Amazon when they said, we're going to wait until it's right in terms of cost and all of the other things that we think are necessary for the Kindle to be successful. We're not going to rush into it. And I think other e-readers, Kobo, I think, has had a color reader for a while. I may be wrong on that, but I know there's some others. And I know e-ink has had color for a while. But I just thought, it's not ready, and it's not going to be ready this time. So the idea that I've been doing the show long enough, I mean, it's been 15 years now, and to actually be sitting there when the color Kindle finally arrived, it's like the prodigal Kindle came home, and it was quite a wonderful moment, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the other thing that happened, however, was that after Panos had given his descriptions overview of the 4 new products, we were able to go to another part of this big area, the shed, a really nice venue, and actually get our hands on the devices. And there were 3 different breakout groups, and different Amazon executives were talking about different products at each of them. And I drifted over the Paperwhite presentation didn't really excite me as much, and Kevin was talking about the Colorsoft. So I went over there, and I had a chance to actually hold one in my hand, and I was able to look at some of the covers. And I was frankly a little disappointed. And as you heard, I mentioned that, and I thought his response to it was good. I spent a lot of time on an iPad, and I'm just used to brilliant color and on my iPhone, and I've never seen color on a Kindle. I know what a Kindle looks like in black and white. So there was kind of a mismatch between what my expectations were telling me in the big room when I was getting kind of, misty about, wow, there's really a color Kindle. I think in that moment I was thinking, color Kindle means pretty bright colors. And when I actually looked at it, they weren't that bright. It was kind of muted, and they were definitely color. It was definitely, not black and white. And I could imagine that on graphic novels, comics, some of the things that my grandsons read, that color would be really nice to have, a lot nicer than the black and white version. And then the ability to highlight in different colors, which I talked to Kevin about in the interview, that really looked nice. I mean, when you draw across a line on that Colorsoft Kindle and you decide to make it blue or yellow or what the other colors are, it's pretty. It really looks nice. So it was a bit of a whiplash, just the idea of the color Kindle really excited me. And then when I saw it, I thought, yeah, but it's kind of tame. And I remember I was at a trade show probably 10 years ago, and I got to see an e-ink color screen. And I remember thinking at the time, well, yeah, it's color, but it's so muted. Like, what's the point? So anyway, it will be interesting to see how popular this is, and I'll be really curious to see what Jake and Ryan, my young grandsons, think about it at 11 and 9. Do they think this is really cool or sort of meh? Who knows? But in any event, you will be able to order it on October 16th, $280 pre-order, and it will ship on October 30th. I'm not sure I understood what Kevin was talking about, the nitride LEDs. I did notice that there's a vibrant setting and a standard setting. I couldn't tell on the unit that I was playing with what the difference was, but I suppose vibrant is brighter. Maybe they can saturate it somehow. It's still got 8 weeks of battery life, and it's waterproof. So it's got, it's got all the other, I think it's basically a Paperwhite that has the color ability added to it. And I'm sure it was quite manufacturing engineering feat. And as I told Kevin, I'm glad I lived long enough to see it. It was a moment. Now, the Scribe got a lot of emphasis in Panos's talk. He's a very, let's say he's an effective speaker. I won't say he was slick, but, I don't know him that well. I got very used to Dave Limp, who was just kind of a natural guy and kind of earnest. And Panos, he had his thing down very smoothly, and he's very articulate. And I liked what he had to say about the Scribe and the idea of what it means to read a book and then to be highlighting and annotating a book. And he struck me as a true lover of reading and writing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more on that when I turn to the index card I've got here on Panos. But anyway, he put a lot of emphasis on the all-new Scribe. It's available for pre-order for $400. The existing Scribe costs $340, so that's quite a price increase of $60, and it's going to ship on December 4th. It's attractive. It's got a thinner bezel, and it has kind of white borders around the screen, which looks nice. The premium pen has a cool innovation because they've turned the eraser part of it, the end of it, it's actually sort of soft-tipped. It actually feels like an eraser. And they said that when they had people trying these things and they were erasing with the new premium pen on the Scribe, they would flick the screen as if they were flicking away pieces of a number 2 pencil eraser, which I can imagine because it really does feel that way. A nice little touch. And then it was very intriguing to hear about the 2 new ways that they've added to do annotations on the Scribe. And the first one is called Active Canvas. And the way this works is in a Kindle book, we've been able to annotate PDFs and other things on the Scribe, but we haven't been able to annotate the Kindle books themselves except for the sticky notes thing, which I thought was kind of cool, but it disappointed me in some ways too. This new way of doing the annotations, Active Canvas, is really pretty clever. The way it works is you're reading along and you want to make a note of some kind, the way you would in a regular book. You touch the stylus to the place that you want to write the note, and you just start writing over the text of the book. And as soon as it can tell that you're writing a note and you're not doing a highlight or you're not doing an underline, which is another way of doing annotations that's being added, a little box pops up and you can write in that little box, and your annotation goes in the box, and the text of the book flows around the box. It's sort of like word wrapping, or the kind of things I've done in, laying out newspapers. And then once you've got your note in the box, you can make the box bigger or smaller. You can make it kind of crowd out more of the text, and the text just keeps flowing around whatever size you want that little box of your writing in the book to look like, shows up, and it's part of the book. And then if you change the font size, it will remember where you made that note, and it'll flow the book around to take into account that now there's a larger font. So that's pretty cool too. The other thing is called expandable margin. Now that one isn't coming until sometime next year. The Active Canvas is coming later this year. So even though the Scribe itself will be shipping on December 4th, it sounds like when it comes December 4th, it won't have that Active Canvas ability to take notes. And the expandable margin is, I almost like that one even better because, I would like to put notes in the margins of books, and it's kind of means something to me because my dad's father, Grandpa Edgerly, he was an English professor at MIT, and we have some of his old books from the 30s, and he would write these tiny little notes in the margin of the book, and they were usually in pencil. And as a kid, I think I must have seen them, and it just sort of touched me to think, boy, this is a book that my grandpa had, and he was such a smart guy and a student of English, and this is something he wrote in that book. So, when I was in high school, and I would write in books, textbooks and things, and I really liked the idea that I could write something in the margin of the book that would be helpful to me, especially if I was studying. Well, now you can do that, and I can't remember exactly how you initiate it, but somehow you let the Kindle know, I want to write in the margin. And then the margin gets really wide. It's not just the tiny margin you're looking at when you read the book. It's kind of a big area. And you can write a ton of stuff. In other words, you can write more in that margin on your Kindle book than you could a paper book because it'll scroll and you can just keep going. And so it's kind of an infinite margin that becomes available for you to write stuff in the Kindle book. And then there's a clever aspect of it because you might want to write in the margin, and there's plenty of space to do so, but then you can kind of collapse the margin so that the book returns to just having, you would see the Active Canvas notes in the book as you're scrolling past that page, but if you have chosen to hide the expandable margins, they're not going to be there. So it's a second way to make the book your own and to have notes in there which will be with you as long as you have that Kindle book. Now, one thing that I've done in using the sticky notes, which, in the current Scribe, I can make a note. I always date the note because I think it's kind of interesting. When I go back and I look at a book and it's, I had this, and I'll say, this is 2285 at Hooper, which is the name of the cottage that we stay in Maine. So I can locate this is where I was when I wrote this note, and here's the date that I wrote it. And now there's going to be even more space to do that with the Active Canvas and the expandable margin. Now, I reached out to Devin, the woman that kind of hooked me up with this event, to ask if the Active Canvas and the expandable margin will be available for current Scribes as well as the new one. And she wrote back, yes. I hope she understood my question correctly, but it makes sense to me that this is something that they could add to the existing Scribe, and you don't have to buy the new all-improved Scribe for $400 to get these two features. That they'll probably come to the existing Scribes at the same time that they come to the new ones. I'm not sure if I mentioned that the price goes up from $340 for the current Scribe to $400, and that's the pre-order price if you want to get it and receive it on December 4th. Now, the Paperwhite, the problem with the Paperwhite is it's sort of the perfect e-reader. You know, I think they just sell so many of them, and it's I love it. I have a nice case on mine, and there isn't anything about it that I would say, oh gosh, I wish they would improve it. So now comes an all-new Paperwhite, as Amazon likes to say, and it's 25% faster page turns. When I was in the area where they had actual devices, I put my current Paperwhite next to the new Paperwhite, and I tapped the pages of a book at the exact same moment. I couldn't see any difference. I mean, 25% sounds like you ought to be able to see it, but it seemed as if the page turns were the same to my naked eye. I'm sure it is faster, and faster is always better. It's the highest contrast ratio of any Kindle, they said, this Paperwhite. It's also got a bigger screen. The screen goes from 6.8 inches on the diagonal to 7 inches. It's thinner. I don't have in my notes exactly how thin it is. When you hold it, it's so thin. I mean, it just feels really compact, and it's kind of the perfect size. It has 3 months of battery life. It's waterproof, and it has 16 gigabytes of storage. Now, the basic Paperwhite is $160, and again, that's available, shipping tomorrow, the 16th, I mean, when you hear this. So the price has gone up $10, from $150 to $160. There's a signature edition, which was selling at $190. Now it's $200, and for the signature edition, you get twice the storage, 32 gigabytes, optional wireless charging. I don't really know what that means. I assume it means that you can put the signature edition of the Paperwhite on some kind of a disk charger. You don't have to actually plug it in with the USB cable. And also it has an auto-adjusting light. Panos, I think, was trying to make the case that if you showed somebody the new all-improved Paperwhite 2024, they might want to replace their existing Paperwhite with it. I think that would be kind of a tough sell, actually. But in any event, they did make some improvements, and I like the fact that they would take a product that's selling so well and try to do anything with it to make it better. I think that's a good sign. I'll talk about that at the end as well. The basic Kindle. Panos had a nice moment. He's talking about the basic Kindle. The price is going up to $110 from the current $100. It will ship Tuesday, October 16th, and it's 10% faster. It's got 300 PPI, so it's got nice resolution. I don't think there's any change in the weight. It's listed at 158 grams, 5.6 ounces, and I think that's the same as the current one. The storage does double, 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes. It's got a higher contrast ratio and a 25% brighter front light. It's as bright as a Paperwhite. Again, incremental changes. One thing they were touting in the press release is that there's a new color, matcha. I think it's like a sage green, M-A-T-C-H-A. So if matcha is your favorite color, you'll be able to get a new basic Kindle in that color. When I see the price go up to $110, I remember I don't know if it was the first or the second time I talked with Jeff Bezos in 2016 or 2020. I had said, do you think that the Kindle is going to be like the calculator? I remember when I had a calculator at business school, and I think I paid $500 for it, and now you can get them, at Best Buy or a supermarket for like $7. And is that the way this is going to go? And I remember he said, well, now that's a what do you call it, a wild goal or something, and almost like he might think, yeah, that would be great if the price fell to that level. Well, it's going the other way now. It's going back up to 110. I think it's still a great buy. For somebody who's just getting started with e-reading, for $110 to be able to have a device that is so advanced compared to the first Kindle back almost 17 years ago, still a pretty good deal. So that's the 4 new Kindles that were introduced. I want to turn now to talk to you about Panos Panay, who is the new head of Amazon's devices and services. While I was sitting in the area waiting for the program to start, this guy came up to me, attractive guy. He was all dressed in black, except for he had these really cool sneaker-type shoes, and the soles of the shoes were white, and everything else that he was wearing was black. A pretty sporty-looking guy. And he is now Senior Vice President of Devices and Services. He joined Amazon in October of last year, 2023, after 19 years at Microsoft. And I think that was a kind of a big hire, and stepping into the job that Dave Limp had. He told a nice story about why he had decided to come from Microsoft to Amazon, and it had to do with his daughter, who I'm not sure how old she was at the time. Well, would have been just a year ago. And he was saying, I have a chance to work at this company, and they do all this great stuff. They've got products and this and that. And he happened to mention that one of the things that he would be in charge of was the Kindle. And he said his daughter said, "Kindle? You're going to work for the company that makes the Kindle?" And as he told the story, and he's a good storyteller, he was weighing all the things that someone would do, to leave a company that you've worked at for 19 years and go to work for a new company. That's the kind of thing that you build all kinds of spreadsheets to help make your decision. But in his memory of it, it was when his daughter had that reaction that he was going to be a rock star because he was working with the Kindle. He decided to go to work for Amazon a year ago, and it looks like he's having a pretty good time of it. One thing that I noticed and enjoyed was that early on in Panos's talk about the Kindle, he quoted something which I thought I had remembered Jeff Bezos saying early on, and it was a very sort of condensed version of the mission of the Kindle, which was any book, any language, 60 seconds. And I thought, well, that's great. We're 4 days away from, as I'm talking to you now, from the introduction of the Kindle in 2007, November 19th. And people are still remembering the vision that Jeff Bezos had when he had the people at Lab 126, make me an e-reader. I don't want to plug it in. I want to download books wirelessly. Any book, any language, 60 seconds. Well, I went back and I said, there's something about that quote that I don't think is quite right. And so what I found was that in 2009, a couple of years after the introduction of the Kindle, Jeff was quoted, said at a press conference that the vision that he had set in front of the company for this was every book ever written in any language available for less than 60 seconds. Now, that's a significant difference to me because I always thought, boy, that is a very specific bogey that he's putting out there for the team. Every book ever written. Well, for one thing, there's always more books being written. So how do you measure how well you're doing against that goal? And Panos, and maybe this didn't originate with him, but when he was saying it today, by saying instead of every book ever written in any language, he said any book written in any language. And that means if any book that is published in any language can be put on a Kindle and download in 60 seconds, then they're meeting their goal. You see what I mean? There's sort of an absolute and an individual target that that the vision has been tweaked, maintaining the spirit of what Jeff Bezos was talking about, but it's maybe a little bit more achievable in this current version of it. I liked how Panos talked about the Kindle reading. It's a focus of a place of focus and joy, almost like a sanctuary. He was ringing my bell over and over in the way he talked about how wonderful a thing it is to read a book, and to read a book on a Kindle, because you aren't going to have your email, and it's all the things that were so special about it 17 years ago are even more so now. I mean, when I curl up with my Kindle, it is a sanctuary. It's a place where I'm going to read, especially if 3 in the morning when I can't sleep, and I'm curling up reading a novel or something by Mirabai Starr or whatever. So that's I'm glad that, and Dave Limp, I think, loved the Kindle. He also was really big on the Lex and the other things, and it may be that the new Dave Limp is somebody who has got the kind of affection for the Kindle lineup that I think is going to be useful. Jeff Bezos is not the CEO anymore, and I think it's, does it become a utility? Does it become something where time and money isn't put into it as passionately as the missionaries that Jeff talked about? Well, Panos Panay may be missionary 2.0 who has shown up a year ago, and at least on today's event where he had a chance to do the dance with the new Kindles, he was really enjoying himself, and he was fun to watch. Now, that reminds me, I interviewed him at one point. I was asking him something about his love of reading, so I'll make sure I run that clip toward the end of this before we sign off here. He had a couple of statistics which were well chosen. He was trying to illustrate, where are we 17 years into this, changing the way people read. And one data point he had was 20.8 billion pages are read each month on Kindle devices. 20.8 billion pages read each month on Kindle devices. Not bad. He also said that, and I think this was last year, Kindle sales were the highest they had been in more than a decade. So, it's not sort of a fading product category. It's growing in sales. And then the one that was particularly gratifying to me, 60% of the Kindle sales last year were to first-time customers, people that were finally getting around after almost 17 years, saying, I think I might try that e-reader thing and see what it's about. 60% of the sales went to first-time customers. That was pretty cool. Let's turn now to, since I've been talking about Panos, I'm going to find that little interview I did with him and load it from my iPhone to my MacBook Air so you can listen to that. You showed some passion up there, which touched me because the Kindle's very close to my heart. When you read, and maybe how you're reading, which device, say a little bit more about how come you get sort of emotional about it.
Because I think there's so many different forms for me of creation. Being able to use somebody else's words to paint a picture in your mind is one of these magical innate things that we have as humans. And it's hard to express it, but a great author knows it.
Do you do any writing yourself where you think you might be touching people with some of your short stories or anything?
Yeah, no, I do a lot of writing. I don't share my writing. I've had a very hard time with it, actually. My team's like, share some of your musings. I don't. I have a hard time. It's very personal to me. I do a ton of it. I've written chapters in books for myself, if you will. I say for myself because I don't think I'd ever share them. But yeah, what I find is in the process of writing, the concept for me is I'm writing, what I'm writing then sticks, and then I can put it in prose, if you will, and have a conversation, but I'm processing what I've already written down. It's a really important part of my
As you're
thinking
writing it,
process.
that sort of triggers your mind.
Definitely as I write it. Then when I'm done, like, so my note taking in the morning includes how am I going to talk, for example, Kinley's right here. How am I going to talk to Kinley today? What conversation, like I do a little bit of pre-formation. That's a big deal for me.
First take. Nice. Thank you very much. Great to meet you. Well, I'll finish up with a little color commentary on this event. The hotel that I found, I took the train down and got to New York at Penn Station, and I had just a 10-minute walk to this hotel and then about an 8-minute walk to the Shed, which is where the event was held at 545 West 30th Street up in the 8th floor. It was, Amazon does such a classy job with these types of events. As you walked in, there were images of the Kindle, and there were kind of displays talking about, I love reading, I love the Kindle. And then going up to where the event was going to be held, there was some really nice food, nice, tasty, healthy breakfast treats to have, and juices and sparkling water or still water. The room itself, I think there were maybe 40 or 50 of us there from the media, and it was arranged kind of like a big living room. I was sitting in the front row just in a very comfortable upholstered chair, and the beige carpet. Overhead there was a skylight, so I don't know if somebody had scoped out the location carefully enough to think, well, we want to make sure people understand that you can read Kindles outside. And so there it was, the sunlight coming down, which actually in some of the demonstrations that was an issue. There was too much sunlight. And it was pretty chill. I ended up staying quite a bit after it ended at 12 because I was trying to film some things and gather my thoughts. I thought it was kind of neat that it took place 4 days from the 17th anniversary of the introduction of the Kindle. I'm not doing the show as often in any way as I did when I was doing it once a week for 14 years or so. But to come to an event like this and to have a chance to see people that I have been seeing at events that Amazon's put on for all of that time, it starts feeling like kind of old home week, or there's a little nostalgia. And when I saw the image of the original Kindle on the screen with that crazy scroll bar and everything, I mean, it was like looking back at, your 18-year-old kid who was, when he was 5 or something, and or grandkid. And so I had some emotions as I was getting ready, and I had made my train connections. I got 3.5 hours of sleep the night before I came down. I was so excited about this. So yesterday I was exhausted on the train, but I got a good night's sleep here at the hotel, and I was pretty tuned, and I'm using a cane to walk these days because my knees are pretty wobbly, and I striding my way up to the Amazon thing and getting my press pass. And every once in a while the universe gives you these moments that are just it's a bit of awe, it's a bit of smiling at the synchronicity of things. But one of my favorite songs is The Girl from Ipanema, and I think it's because it was one of Dad's favorite songs. The Stan Getz version. He made a business trip to Brazil, and I think I remember as a kid he had a Stan Getz album, and that haunting song about the girl from Ipanema, young and tan and tall and lovely. And so as I'm making my way into the room where they're going to be showing off I didn't know what they're going to be showing off at that point. In these great speakers where the music is just playing, just such high quality and good volume, The Girl from Ipanema. And I thought, yeah, there's times when you just can believe that you're where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. And I felt that way this morning. I felt very grateful to have another chance to see what is coming and keeps getting better about this remarkable device, the Kindle. And I'm grateful to all of you who keep listening. And I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing this for people I care about and who I love to hear from. And I hope this has been of interest to you. And if you get one of the new devices or you have any thoughts, just feel free to send me an email at lenedgerly@gmail.com. And I'll also be putting up a morning journal entry about this tomorrow morning, not until 9 o'clock, of course. And then I've got a Substack newsletter, Len's newsletter, which you can find at lenedgerly.substack.com. And I'll probably have a photo or two of the event as well. So that's it for the Kindle Chronicles from New York City. Thanks for listening.